This is going to be the practical magic ancestral offerings and libations. Can you give me a cup real quick so I can show these niggas what the fuck we about to do here? So with this practical magic webinar, I really wanted to talk to you guys about a very basic and universal aspect of occult practice, which is offerings and libations. These things are common to almost all of the Aboriginal and indigenous magical systems. Everyone utilizes this.
Even the church.
Even the church has their tithes and offerings. You see what I'm saying? But we really want to bring it back to its original essence, because the church has kind of made it about money. Whereas back in the good old days, you see what I'm saying, offerings were a lot more inclusive. They were a lot
personalized.
They were very personalized.
For each deity.
Definitely, each deity had their own personal offerings. What you could actually offer up to the gods was a lot more vast. It wasn't just money. So I definitely wanted to bring this to the forefront, talk about it, really explain the science behind it, and help you guys ultimately begin to utilize this as a part of your daily magical practices, so that way y'all can start tapping into this energy at a greater level, start really conducting these energies at a greater level, and start making use of these gods in a way that's actually going to be beneficial to you. As a, like I said, practical means and mode of tapping into the power. So what is libations? Now, libations is very simple, actually. This webinar shouldn't even be too long because of how simple these things are to explain. Libations and to do. Libations, it's as easy as pouring one out for the dead homies. That's it. It's really that simple. All right. So, boom, get you some water or alcohol, fire water. You see what I'm saying? Particularly alcohol.
Like rum and gin.
Particularly alcohol. But water works as well, because of course water is the source of all life. We know this. We don't have to question why or ask why. You can go check the mythology. All of the most ancient cosmologies have their origins in water. All right. So it's literally pouring one out for the dead homies. What are offerings? Offerings are anything that you give to the gods in order to pay them for their services. Because of course, nothing in the universe is free. Everything costs something. You see what I'm saying? Everything has its price. You see what I'm saying? So when you are trying to persuade your own ancestors to work on your behalf, you see what I'm saying? I'm sure they would love to help you just to help you. But of course, that requires energy on their part. So they're going to require that you give them something in order for them to give back to you. The scales have to be balanced. What we really have to understand is the fact that the scales have to be balanced. If you want 5 grams worth of work, nigga, you're going to have to pay for that in order to balance those scales out. So this is what offering is really all about. Paying your ancestors to move on your behalf. All right. Now, when I say ancestors, all I'm talking about are the subconscious, unconscious, dormant aspects of your DNA. You see what I'm saying? All of your ancestors are located in your DNA. You, the one watching this video, is operating on the 3% of DNA that is actively coding. You're working on the 3% of DNA that is actually creating light, or not even say creating light, but that's creating your consciousness. The rest of that DNA is subconscious, unconscious. It's working under the surface, below the surface, and it forms the foundation of your conscious experience. It's no different than an iceberg. The 10% that you can see on the top is you, but the 90% that's below the water, that's actually holding up that portion that's above the surface that we can see, that's your ancestors. All right, they're holding you up. They're standing under you, so they form all of your understandings. All right, so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the ancestors. So when we give them offerings, when we give them food and drink, which is a very important thing in a lot of these different Aboriginal indigenous cultures, what we're doing is we're giving them the necessary energy that they need in order to function on our behalf, in order to make things happen within our conscious realm by actively recoding our subconscious reality. All right, this is what we're trying to do. A great movie that is actually going to really show you and explain to you in a very easy and simple to understand way what offerings and libations are all about. That movie Coco with the little Mexican boy that was playing the guitar. That movie's really going to explain to you how libations and offerings work.
And they give a good visual too.
Right, because what we really have to understand about offerings and shit, when you give the ancestors food, when you give them flowers, when you give them crystals, when you give them drinks, when you give them incense, when you set up an altar and you give them all of these different things, ultimately it's not about the physical object itself, but the energy contained within it. We can go to quantum physics that says that all particles are waves of have condensed and collapsed in upon themselves here to be solid structures. When we go down to the smallest levels of the subatomic reality, we realize that all particles are just swirling vortexes of energy. So when I pour the water out to my ancestors, it's not about the physical water, it's about the symbolic nature of water, of what water represents. Like I just said, this shit is the source of all life. So if I pour water out and I give it to my ancestors, a special water that I give them, I'm now giving them life. What do you use water for? For hydration. Without water, you would die. So if your ancestors don't get no water, how are they going to be able to get up, be active, look alive, and work on your behalf? What do you use food for? You use that for fuel for your body, so that way you can do what you need to do whilst conscious. They need the same thing, but it's not about the physical object. Coco will show you this, because literally the ancestors came through and they had all the food and the drinks set out, and they didn't grab the physical object. They grabbed the spiritual energy of that physical object. They almost grabbed the etheric, energetic copy of that object, and they took that, and that's what they use in order to sustain themselves. All right, your ancestors are beings of light, not visible light, the light that is beyond the visible spectrum. That's why you can't see them directly with your physical eyes. All right, so they work on frequencies of light that are outside of the visible spectrum. Right, so the physical, right, corresponds to an invisible energy that surrounds it, an aura. Everything has an aura, everything has an animate essence. All right, that's what they're utilizing to actually move and do what they need to do. All right, so I really want you guys to think of offerings and libations as a way of paying your ancestors for the work that they do, showing them your respect, showing them that you care. Forms of offering that we utilize today that we don't even realize as offerings is bringing flowers to the gravesite of a dead loved one. You see what I'm saying? That's an offering. Those flowers contain an energy within them. So when you offer it to the ancestors, you're giving them the life force object.
Right, we're usually bringing roses, which are love.
Which, boom, we're bringing them the energy of love, because that's what roses symbolize energetically. You see what I'm saying? So when we bring them the roses, we're bringing them love. When we bring them water, when we bring them alcohol, we're bringing them the essence of life, which is water. And then with alcohol, we're bringing them the spirit, because that's what alcohol is. It's called wine and spirits for a reason. What is divine breath? You see what I'm saying? That's why it's a hot breath too, right? So that's what we're doing. It contains that fire. Fire is also another essence of the animating force within the body, because what do you breathe for? You breathe to bring in the oxygen into the blood. Oxygen is what combusts objects. You see what I'm saying? Oxygen is actually what's used to burn something. So when we're bringing them the spirits within the alcohol, you see what I'm saying? We're bringing them the breath. When we bring them the water, we're bringing them the essence of life. When we bring them the food, we're giving them the fuel that they need, once again, to work on our behalf. You see what I'm saying? We're giving them the necessary energy that we use to survive and thrive. We give that to them, and they wake up. They thrive. They survive. Now they can start to move more. You see what I'm saying? We never want to go to the ancestors and ask them for something without first giving them something for it, because it's all about equivalent energy exchanges. All right, we don't want to go to the ancestors in the spirit of poverty where we're begging them for shit and we're not offering them something. We're not willing to pay them for their time, their service, and their energy. You get what you pay for. You have to pay to play. You see what I'm saying? So if this is a Akashic arcade, which is something that I've been a concept that I've been bringing out slowly but surely, right? If this is an Akashic arcade, the offerings are the tokens that you use to actually get them to play the game, play with on your behalf. You are only the overall power that your entire genetic sequence represents. Right? You can only have access to 10% of your brain at a time. Only 3% of your DNA is actively coding. You are but a small, minuscule portion of their power. So if you want to access more of their power, the libations, the offerings, this is what we're going to need to utilize in order to do so. Now, the next part that we have to understand is that each one of your particular ancestors is a part of a group entity known as an archetype. All right, archetypes are like constellations within the subconscious mind. They're a group or aggregate thought form of energy that is used and symbolized within image or symbolism. You see what I'm saying? So sexuality is an archetype. The symbols of sexuality usually deal with the ram, the bull, the snake. Boom, that's an archetype. Love is an archetype. These are subconscious forces that are present within all of humanity. They're also present within all of mythology. That's why all mythologies have a god of love. All mythologies have a god of sex. All mythologies have a great mother goddess. All mythologies have a great father goddess. These are energies that are prevalent in all human experience. All right. So each one of these archetypes has particular symbols associated with it because those symbols carry a quantum entanglement to the energy that the archetype actually represents. You see what I'm saying? So just like we said, roses are a symbol of the archetype of love. So if you want to bring more love into your life, or if you want to, I should say, what I really should say is, if you want to bring more love out of your DNA, because you already are love, that force already exists within your subconscious mind. Ancestors that are associated with love as an archetype to activate, to wake up, and to begin to move and really shake up your life to bring more love out of you or make love a greater reflection in your external reality. Roses would be a way to do that. You would give that to them as an offering. You see what I'm saying? That's what you need. Now, the first thing about offerings, you usually need a sacred space with which to offer them the things that you want to give them. You see what I'm saying? So altar magic becomes very important. I'm not about to deal with altar magic right now. If you want to learn about altar magic, we do have the Practical Magic Starter Kit where we deal with spell writing, altar magic, candle magic, and what else? 3.
I think
there was one more included in that starter pack. It was 4 of them. It was 4 things that we included. But it's webinars, PowerPoints, fucking notes and things, all of that. We'll go into altar magic in that one. I've already explained altar magic. I'm not about to do that right here. But usually you need some form of a sacred space that you go to where you and your ancestors can meet up. Like I said, your ancestors are inside of you, but you do have to project them outside of you, create some sacred space outside of you, so that way you guys can have a common meeting point, because you, for the most part, exist here. You don't exist in your subconscious mind. You exist here. So you have to create a space that is symbolic of holy ground that you use to as a midway point between you and your ancestors. So whether that be an altar, whether that be a special tree outside, whether that be or a bowl of some sort that you use inside of your house, bowls, plates. It could be a body of water that you go to and sacrifice things. Any place that you consider holy ground, that's where you want to bring the offerings to. Just like a gravesite, that's where you bring the flowers to your dead ancestors. You see what I'm saying? No different. That's holy ground on that aspect. So first, you need some form of a holy space in order to actually um, place those offerings. All right. Boom. So if I want to call in more love, if I want to invoke and evoke more love in my life, I first have to find the symbols that are associated with love. You see what I'm saying? Rose quartz is another physical object that is associated with the archetype of love. So I could potentially bury a piece of rose quartz in the earth. You see what I'm saying? That's an offering to the fairies and shit. I could place that piece of rose quartz on my altar. That's an offering to them. They're going to utilize the energy that the rose quartz has contained within it in order to sustain themselves and thus carry out your will and your wishes. That's what the offering is all about. Now, very universal offerings, because like I said, every archetype has its specific symbols and things that you can use as offerings. Every god has its specific symbols and objects, its preferences in terms of what it likes for offerings. But universal offerings, right? Water is a universal offering, right? Alcohol, universal offering. Food is a universal offering. Now you may be asking, well, what kind of food? What kind of alcohol? What kind of nigga, what do you like? What kind of food do you like? What things do you like to eat? What kind of alcohol do you like to drink? Do you like to smoke? You should probably offer them some of your weed too. They like what you like because they're in your DNA. They're the very reason why you like those things. Once again, you're just the top 10%. They're the underlying 90. So the reason why you like the things you like up here is because they are the ones that create that subconscious feel that projects itself into your conscious reality. So if you like to smoke, roll a blunt for them, put it on the altar. Don't smoke it. Leave that shit alone. You see what I'm saying? Leave it alone for a couple of days. Make sure that they've had time to get the energy out of it, and then you can smoke it. You see what I'm saying? You might get even higher off that shit than what you would have normally. You see what I'm saying? You pour them a cup of water, the altar. Give them their time to partake in that energy. You cook some food, break them off a little piece of that food. Put that on the altar. Leave that on there for as long as you can before it starts molding and all that shit. If it doesn't mold, they definitely accepted it. If it does mold, they accepted it. About offerings, you never have to worry about whether they accepted it or not. The minute you take it, about whether they fuck with it or not, don't question it, because the minute you start questioning it. But once again, back to the main point, they like what you like. You see what I'm saying? Particularly, they like what your inner child likes, not what this adult version of you likes to deal with. Fuck the adult you. The adult you is usually running off of its ego. Go back to the inner child. What were the things that you enjoyed eating as a kid? All the candy, all that shit. Well, if you go to Dia de los Muertos, which is what the movie Coco is all about, the Mexican Day of the Dead.
Sugar skulls.
Sugar skulls. They like candy. They like alcohol. They like meat. They like all the shit that you think is unhealthy. You see what I'm saying? So really understand that all the shit that you really, really like is what they like too. So give that to them as offerings. So like I said, food, water, alcohol. These are 3 universal offerings. What food, what kind of water, what kind of alcohol, that depends on you. What do you like? The one thing that I really want to stress about offerings is the fact that it has to be good enough for you in order to be good enough for them. Don't ever give your ancestors something that you wouldn't want for yourself. Don't ever give your ancestors something that you don't feel comfortable with yourself. So please don't do no animal sacrifices if you're not comfortable with actually killing your own food. Our ancestors were comfortable killing their own food because they didn't have mass manufacturing and all that shit that we have that has separated us from that process. We look at that as disgusting. So trust me, your ancestors are going to look at it the same way, like, ew, I don't want that. But if you just so happen to get a piece of chicken, you see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You wash it, you dress it up, you season it, you cook that bitch. All right, cool. Because you would eat that piece of chicken, wouldn't you? All right. So it's good enough for them. You don't feel comfortable slaughtering a chicken, so don't offer them no slaughtered chicken. You see what I'm saying? Don't do that. Give them the things that you like. They're more willing to accept that because you're more willing to accept that. You are your ancestors. So when you offer them things, you're really offering them up to yourself. When you praise their name, they praise yours. They walk with your feet, they taste with your mouth, they see with your eyes, they fuck with your sexual organs. You see what I'm saying? They live through you. So make sure that whatever you're giving them is things that you genuinely like and enjoy, because that energy that you place upon that thing is going to amplify the energy that already exists within it. So if rose quartz is your favorite type of crystal, you see what I'm saying? That's gonna add extra energy to the rose quartz that you give up, because it's like, yo, I'm really giving this to the gods. This is something that I really like, but I'm willing to sacrifice it to them in order to give them that energy. If you really like Sour Patch Kids and you buy a whole bag and you don't take none of it and you give it all to them, that's a sacrifice. Like, yo, son, I really want a piece of them Sour Patch Kids. But you know what? Y'all, I like it, so I know y'all will love it. That's adding extra energy to the energy that's already contained within the physical object, all right? So I really wanted to kind of go over these basic things. Like I said, each one of these archetypes, each one of these deities, each one of your ancestors really likes specific things. So if you want to tap into the energy of your grandma because your grandma was always able to give you money and you want to tap into that abundance energy, you have to now give your grandma as an offering the things that she liked in life. So if your grandma likes cigarettes, go get you a pack. Don't be afraid to take a hit or two off that cigarette and then place it while it's still lit on the altar. That's what she liked. So you have to get jiggy with it a little bit too. If it's not good enough for you, then how is it good enough for her? See what I'm saying? Boom. If she liked, let's say she liked Appleton rum. Maybe your grandma Jamaican as fuck. Maybe your grandma liked Appleton rum. Boom. You want to pour some of that rum out. You want to take a sip, and then you offer the rest to her. There you go. These are the things that we're now trying to get into. If your grandma's favorite flower was daffodils, go buy you some fresh daffodils. Put them on the altar. She's going to readily take that energy because it's something that she already likes, if that's what you're trying to tap into. If you're trying to tap into the energy of Ogun, Ogun is a warrior ass nigga. So you might want to, if you can, find a couple bullets. You might want to buy a box of bullets and just put them on the altar. That's what Ogun deals with. Ogun's the warrior. Bullets are for weapons, aren't they? There you go. That's an offering. So it doesn't even have to just be the food and the drinks. It can be anything that is physical that can be used as a symbol to represent the archetype or the energy that you're trying to tap into. All right. Let's say you fuck with Yemiya, or not even Yemiya. Let's say you fuck with Oshun, right? Oshun is a pretty girl, really girl. She's all about beauty. Go buy you some Fenty Beauty. Make that investment. Put that on the altar. Get her some eyeshadow, some lipstick, some. This is what we're saying. The creativity offerings is also very important. All right. So, like I said, you can research all of these things in terms of what specific symbols are associated with specific archetypes. If you want to tap into sexuality or you want to increase your sexual energy, look into the symbols associated with it. Yeah. If you want to tap into abundance, wealth, prosperity, look into the symbols associated with it. If you want to tap into that great mother force, you see what I'm saying? You want to tap into your nurturing energy, look into the symbols associated with the great mother. Get that, put that in your sacred space. Boom, now you got it. All right. So we're dealing with that level. Research. I'm not about to sit here and tell you what every archetype deals with. I just gave him a couple.
Yeah. I'm just saying, but basically, like he was saying, most love deities, honey, the color yellow, the color green, the color pink.
Color red as well. Well, red's more sexuality.
Right. I associate.
You personally associate love with red.
Right.
Then by all means.
When you're doing these offerings, what you don't want to do is go to an Ogun and bring him broccoli.
That's not what that nigga deals with.
Yeah. So you want to be there has to be a certain level of synchronicity going on.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dealing with water, bring them chicken.
Bring them
bring
fish.
them something
Bring
of
them
the water.
seashells.
Bring them
them
blue.
sand from the ocean or whatever.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
So, and if you're working with a deity and you don't know exactly what foods they may like or what objects they may like, just start with the colors. Whatever colors you see their sigils associated with, or that you see them wearing in whatever paintings or whatever, grab that.
Mm-hmm.
Start with that until you start to interact. Like he was saying, most war metal, they like the color black. The